Hi, and welcome to Giant Views. My name is Sonia Begeman. I'm the editorial director at Seed World Group. Joining me today is Andy LaVigne, and I think many people know Andy with Asta, the American Seed Trade Association. Andy, I think first things first, can you just tell me more about what you do with Asta and kind of what the mission of Asta is?
Well, thanks, Sonia. It's great to be with you today and great to be talking to the folks with Seed World and all of your subscribers and all of your readers. It's a great magazine, great information, and I really enjoy being able to share with you. I'm the president and CEO of the American Seed Trade Association and been here just about 15 years now. And I just try to stay out of the way of the great team and the great board of directors that we have here at ASTA, try to keep the trains on time and really keep things moving forward. But it's a challenge given all the issues we have, but that's my role.
Awesome. And, the American Seed Trade Association obviously is a great support to our seed industry and to the companies within the seed industry. But, what would you say in a couple sentences is the goal of ASTA?
Well, we really try to focus on those issues that impact the daily operations of the companies that are members of ASTA. Whether it's at the state level and talking to state governments and state legislators, or here in Washington, D.C., with our federal legislators, or even on the international level, we do a great deal of work there to talk about who we are and what our companies do and why it's important to feeding the world. And so it's sort of a basic message when we think about it, Sonia, but realistically, a lot of people take it for granted and don't understand it. So we spend a lot of time having conversations and then I would say we spend a great deal of time advocating on behalf of the American seed industry, again, at that state level, federal level, and on the international level. So that's where we are. A lot of people would consider us lobbyists, but with the industry that we represent, it's a lot of fun just to advocate. And so that's our main goal.
Absolutely. Now, Andy, I've known you for a number of years now, and I've actually never heard your story. So, what made you decide to get involved in ag and really, I mean, seed is such a specific sector of ag. So, what was your motivation for that?
Well, I have to say that I didn't go to college thinking I would be here running an association that represents the seed industry. I didn't grow up in agriculture. My father was in the Air Force, in fact, and we moved around the country quite a bit. I went to the University of Florida and was pretty involved in politics and government in college. And after college, I decided that I wanted to move to DC. I had some friends up here and had visited a couple of times. And, I wanted to see what DC was about, or I guess the adult game of politics. And it really bit me. My first job on the Hill was working for a congressman from Montana, Ron Marlene, who, and the only reason I got a job there is I couldn't find any in the Florida delegation at the time, and my parents were living in Great Falls, where my dad was stationed. After that, I landed a job with Congressman Tom Lewis from South Florida, who was on the Agriculture Committee. I was fortunate enough to handle his agriculture and trade and immigration policy issues, which are all key issues for agriculture. And that's where I got the bug. And I just haven't been able to shake it since then. Following working with Mr. Lewis, I worked for Secretary Ed Madigan at USDA under George Bush. And when he wasn't reelected, I had the opportunity. I went back to the Hill for a little bit, but then moved to Florida and ran the Fertilizer and Ag Chem Association there. And I ran Florida Citrus Mutual for Florida's citrus growers. And I did those two jobs for about 12 years. And I had the opportunity to interview for this job when the former director, Dick Crowder, was nominated to become the ag trade rep for George Bush. And so I couldn't turn this opportunity down, and I've been here for 15 years. And agriculture is a wonderful, wonderful industry. And when you can work for a group like Seed, that is truly the beginning of plant agriculture, and I would argue a lot of animal agriculture because they have to eat too. It's great to be with this industry.
Absolutely. I had no idea you weren't from a traditional farm background. You've certainly caught up with everyone else, I think, and you know the issues pretty well, to say the least.
Well, over the years, I've been very, very fortunate to be able to spend a lot of time with farm families in their operations, side by side with them, really getting my tail side beat, seeing what they do on a daily basis. But from California to Montana and North Dakota, all the way to Florida, and then some on the global level, to see what people do to put food on our plates, to to provide ground cover and cover crops and vegetables. It's just been a fascinating opportunity. And all of that has given me, one, the passion, but also a deep understanding of what people go through to participate in agriculture in this country, put food on our tables, and really do the fantastic work they do.
Absolutely. Well, in your many travels and in your vast experience, I'm curious. When you look at the seed industry as a whole, or even specifically to America, what do you think the biggest challenge we have? What's the biggest challenge we have coming down the pike? And is that is it keeping you up at night? What is that?
Well, I think the biggest challenge that we have in the seed industry today is the innovation that's happening. It's also, to me, the most exciting thing. But whenever you're dealing with government and you work in an industry that is rapidly changing and discovery is happening just a, a monumental scale, it's tough for government to keep up. And their natural reaction is to try to put the brakes on things in some form of policy or regulation. And that's what we fear most as we see the rapid change and discovery in plant sciences and in plant breeding. And so the things that keep me up at night is, I think, our government's understanding of what scientists are doing. And keep in mind, Sonia, this is public breeders, public researchers, and private researchers. It's not just the private sector. And it's funds being spent by the US government and our state governments and our grower checkoff programs making this discovery. But the government has a very difficult time keeping up with that rapid change. And so my challenge, or our challenge as an industry and as an association, is how do we communicate that change? How do we communicate why there's not a reason to be concerned? And how do we help people see that this is to the benefit of our environment, our agriculture producers, and the food that's on our plates every evening? So we are always concerned about what will the government do to tamp back innovation and the adoption of new technologies. And so we spend a great deal of time trying to talk to as many in the government as possible, and using our friends and colleagues in the public breeding sector to help tell the story about what they're doing to bring new tools to America's farmers' fields.
Absolutely. Yeah. Government regulations on a global scale, too, I'm sure. It's a lot to think about for you guys. And you mentioned that you guys advocate, and that's a big part of your job is the conversations and advocating and explaining, you know, what seed companies are doing and what this innovation is. And I think I'd be really curious to hear from you what has been the most successful experience you've had advocating for technology in seed.
Well, we were fortunate enough right before the pandemic, we brought together a group of government officials. We worked very closely with the National Association of Plant Breeders, the Plant Breeding Coordinating Committee, as well as UC Davis, to bring together representatives from the White House, the Office of Science and Technology Policy, with USDA, EPA, and FDA, who have oversight of plant breeding and even biotechnology and in those areas. And we were able to bring in mostly public breeders, but a few breeders from industry to talk about where we are today. And it really was an eye-widening experience for a lot of those government officials who were pretty senior in their areas of expertise. It was very enlightening for them to understand where we have come in the last 10 to 15 years. Many of them are scientists. Many of them are in the plant sciences, but they're on the regulatory side, and they have not been in a lab or at the bench for many years. And so that evolution in the last 15 to 20 years has somewhat bypassed them. And they read about it and everything else. But when you could talk to a colleague and a peer and hear about what they're doing, it's pretty interesting. And that meeting was our first step of a series that we're going to be having probably almost every year. COVID set us back a little bit, but being able to convey to that government regulatory community what's on the horizon, what we've discovered recently, and what we see over that horizon is going to be very beneficial, we think, to our progress and to adoption in the future.
Awesome. That sounds like it would have been really exciting to be a part of for sure. I think that kind of leads really well into my next question, which is, you got to brag about and really advocate about all the really exciting things going on in the seed industry and the new technologies and tell that to people who matter. But it speaks to things are changing really, really fast. Technology is advancing in just a phenomenal way. So as you look to the future, what are you most excited about for the seed industry?
Well, I would say, Sonia, it's that what is going to happen next? What is that next gene editing technique or next breeding technique that we have? What are those next genetic discoveries that are on the horizon? We look at the opportunities today with biological uh, products being a seed treatment and those potential impacts on the performance of seed as well as protecting them and on the environment. And I think if we look at it from a policy standpoint, setting aside that just true excitement that we all have for the discovery that's on the horizon. But from a policy standpoint, it's where seed will play a key role in sustainability in the discussions that we're having. I would say the farm and the agriculture community are leaning in more than we've ever seen them lean in. We know that we're part of the solution to help deal with sustainability or climate change, whatever you want to call that, soil health. But you got to have seed and you have to help that seed perform, whether it's a cover crop or whether it's buffer strips or whether it's that maximizing the yield on that acre of lettuce or that acre of corn or that acre of you name it. You got to start with that seed. And so how do we make sure that we're at that table and talking about innovation and the importance of being able to employ that innovation into agriculture production? So we're excited about this sustainability area. Next, in the coming months, you'll see that Asta has adopted a new strategic pillar that is sustainability. While it's throughout all of our strategic plan, it is a pillar that we'll adopt next week during our policy and leadership development conference that will focus on where does the seed industry need to play its role in sustainability. And we see so many opportunities to do that and to show the world that we are a crucial part of addressing all of those issues that are around the sustainability puzzle.
Absolutely. It's a very exciting opportunity for ag to really be a leader in that space. I 100% agree, and it's exciting to see. I'm going to shift gears for a second and actually maybe shift away from talking about the seed industry specifically, but maybe talk to you as a mentor to our other leaders in the seed industry. And that is, you've had a lot of really fantastic experiences in your career. What is the best piece of advice that you've ever received?
I heard this mostly from my father, but I think he got it from his father, and we've heard it from a lot of other people throughout the business world and religious world and other places. But it's a very basic one. It's listen more than you speak. You were given two ears and one mouth for a reason. And when you think about that, that's so true. A lot of us like to talk, but we have a lot harder time of listening and trying to hear what other people say. And with what we do today, we need to hear what those consumers say or people who may be against modern agriculture. Let's try to hear what their concerns are and what their interests are in what we do, and then how do we relate to them where our solutions are. So that's probably one. And the other one I got from my former boss in Capitol Hill, Congressman Tom Lewis. And, he was always one that mentored us, that helped us, that knew that wasn't going to be our last job in our life working for him. And he wanted to make sure we had great opportunities going forward. And he always told us that whatever you do, give back 100%. And remember, always try to give back. Your success today and tomorrow is based on someone who gave you help. And, and you need to help them. And I'll never forget that. And I always try to have the same conversation with my team or anybody that comes to me for career advice is, try to take that extra time and pay it forward, because a lot of people paid it forward to help me get here. So those are the two that I, probably look at the most, but there's a ton out there. that I've been very, very fortunate to have been given in my career to get to where I am today.
Absolutely. Really solid advice, though. Advice we can all take to heart for sure. And I am curious. So, you've worked in seed specifically now for 15 years in your role. What is your favorite part of working in this industry?
I would say the diversity. We're very fortunate to be able to represent, as we say, everything from alfalfa to zucchini and all production types from organic to conventional to biotechnology. And we know that it starts with the seed. And whether you're planting seed on a roadside for a new highway or on a golf course or a cover crop or you're for a vegetable garden, if you don't start with good seed, your chances are you're not going to get a good crop of whatever you're growing. And so it's so important that every year our companies produce that seed stock to be able to be sold to that consumer. The consumer could be anywhere, again, from the farmer to the homeowner to the golf course manager or the ball field manager. But they need to know that they have to have that confidence when they put it in the ground and water hits it and soil hits it, that it'll germinate and perform like we say it will perform. And this industry does that every single year on every single crop. And so I think that's the thing that just gets me excited about this industry every time. And that diversity is what's so neat, but with the same goal in mind, produce the highest quality seed as possible. And we all know it starts with seed.
Absolutely. Well, it's exciting stuff. Andy, I wanted to give you one last kind of turn it around to you. Is there anything else you'd like to say as we address our Seed World International audience from, of course, not only the United States, but Canada and Europe and whoever else decides to tune in? Any final thoughts for them?
Well, it's a pleasure to work with the international seed community and the International Seed Federation. Every year this industry becomes more and more global, but seems to become smaller and smaller, realizing that we've got to move seed around the world to research, to multiply, to provide sales, and to provide product. And it really is important that we continue to build relationships across the borders to make sure that seed can move to the benefit of farmers anywhere. It's not just in the US. We know it's anywhere. And so whether it's those farmers in sub-Saharan Africa or in parts of Asia or South America, as well as in our backyard here in the US, they've got to have access to that seed in order for them to plant, in order for us to eat. And so end of the day, that relationship globally is becoming more and more important for all of us. So it's a pleasure to work across all those lines. And I have to say, after COVID, I'm ready to get back to face-to-face meetings with my colleagues on the global basis.
Absolutely. I am 100% with you there. So, well, thank you so much, Andy, for joining us today. And thank you to everyone who's able to watch with us at Seed World International. I hope that you will tune in throughout the rest of the week to more giant views and tune into our power hours to network with your peers. And be sure to check out our innovation hubs and everything else we have going on in this great platform. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your week. And again, thank you, Andy, for your time and for your great expertise.
Thank you, Sonia. It's great to be with you.